You're watching Startup Central with me, Nayantara Rai, working from home. We have a very special episode for you. 3 unicorns of 2020, all packed in this very special episode. The 3 unicorns, we also will include 2020's first unicorn, Pine Labs. Became a unicorn in January 2020 and is finishing the year with a bang by doubling its valuation to $2 billion. The other 2 unicorns became unicorns today. They're both in the content space. They both have short video formats, hot right after the TikTok ban, and Google is a common investor in both those unicorns. They are Daily Hunt and InMobi's Glance. But first up is the interview with Pine Labs. This is my interview with Pine Labs done earlier in the day. Our guest is Pine Labs, which is rewriting the digital landscape for SMEs as well as Kirana stores. The CEO, Amrish Rau, joining us right here on this edition. Thanks, Amrish, for joining us here. It's the year end. You're joining us all the way from Singapore. Good to have you on this show. It's certainly been a very, very busy year for you. You became the Chief Executive Officer during COVID-19. You've steered Pine Labs through a fantastic growth trajectory from unicorn, now $2 billion. Tell us about the latest investment round, which acts as a testament of sorts also for the growth story of Pine Labs.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. It's actually been a very, very tough year, not just for us, but also the small merchants of India. Footfalls had completely collapsed. We had to come up with new solutions, which was doorstep commerce, offline to online, the entire pay later story. And we are actually happy that this all the work that we did in this year came to a good close, wherein we announced funding led by Lone Pine. Lone Pine was founded by the legendary Stephen Mandel. Quite excited because we've got a very pristine cap table. We've got Sequoia, MasterCard, PayPal, Temasek, and Actis on our cap table, and quite excited to bring along Lone Pine. This is their first private investment in the Indian market.
So can you, we talk about 2020, and like I said, you became a unicorn towards the start. You're ending the year by doubling your valuation. Now, 2020 is a year which has led to acceleration of digitization, accepting digital products, whether you're a merchant or the one who's going to the merchant for business, a consumer, all of that. So you're entering 2021 for sorts on a higher base. Is this kind of growth actually sustainable for Pine Labs?
Yeah, so let me give you 3 numbers and then you'll understand that these are secular changes which has happened. One, contactless card payment, which used to be about 2% at the start of the year, has now gone to almost 15-17% in all of the card base. So what you can do is just tap your card and the transaction is done. It's an entirely safe transaction. So it's seen significant shift by almost 6x in this year itself. QR-based payments in total, UPI payments in total has now gone to about 2 billion a month. And when it comes to pay later and getting installment-based payments, that market has grown almost 100% year on year. What we have seen is footfalls are definitely down in the offline stores, but what we have seen is the percentage of people using digital payments has increased by almost 3 times from compared to the pre-COVID days. I don't think so. The Indian consumer is going to rush back to cash quite quickly in 2021, especially for purchases. So I think this is a secular change. Demonetization, as we all know, provided a fillip for digital payments. But I think COVID is making people extremely concerned in using cash. And hence digital payments is becoming the right choice. We are also getting to see a very interesting trend where small merchants who had been sitting on the fence, not sure if they want to have a POS terminal for doing digital payment acceptance, they have started to accept this in a big way. In the month of October alone, we digitized 25,000 stores all across the country. And we are seeing that trend continue in November and December.
But this is also a space that you're operating in, Amrish, which has become very competitive in 2020. Yes, you have been at it for years. When I say you, I mean Pine Labs has been at it for years. But now it's a space, for example, that Mukesh Ambani's JioMart wants to be in. It's a space where India's most valuable unicorn, Paytm, is trying to make waves in. We've seen mushrooming of many other fintech startups that want to occupy this space. So it's become very hyper competitive. You also have the likes of Bharat Pay and all of that. Market is large enough for all of you?
I think the market varies and the requirement of each player varies. Ours is a very, very tech-focused approach. So the way we look at it is the small merchant is being inundated with various apps and small technology services. That's making his storefront very, very complex. We are completely focusing on digitizing payments and digitizing the commerce on a small store. Quite a few of the players that you mentioned out there, they might be coming in consumer first, or they might be coming in out there with an approach of just deploying a box at a merchant location. Ours is much more of a software first approach. In fact, I would say we continue to have about 60 to 65% market share on the enterprise and mid-market of the offline business. The retail segment, the dal chawal rice seller, that's not the merchant base that we actually go ahead and target. We are targeting what I call as a merchant, which is having a shop, is sitting in a hole in the wall kind of a location, might have an air conditioner. That's the one that we are targeting because they require technology solutions to run their storefront more efficiently.
So, you have raised about what, $75 million to $100 million in the new investment round, which has led to the doubling of Pine Labs valuation in the year to $2 billion. What are you going to use all of this money for? Is it to grow? Is it also just to make sure that you have enough cash in the bank to take on the new competition? I understand that you're leading the market right now, but does it get intimidating sometimes when you know that Jio is coming at you for market share with the likes of Google, Facebook and all behind it? You've got other unicorns in the space as well.
It's a very interesting question. I actually haven't thought about it from a competition standpoint. I've always thought about it in terms of the market opportunity. And I'm being very honest about it. The way I'm looking at it is, I think this wave of digitization is so huge that we really need to double down on driving commerce through small cities of the country. That's one. Second is, enabling credit for consumption in the small centers is very, very important with our pay later solution. So we want to continue increasing the outlets at which consumers get access to pay later. That's the second area that we want to focus on. And third is MasterCard is an investor of Pine Labs. We've already made an announcement that we will go to 5 countries with our tech stack in Southeast Asia. That's another area that we are going to invest in going forward. Look, I'm just going to be honest about it. I haven't thought about it from a competition standpoint. We are much more of a tech-first company rather than worry about people, who could be deploying just boxes of terminals at a merchant location.
So give me an idea, of how big 2020 was. You told me in percentage numbers, but, can you tell us in absolute numbers as well? Because just for our viewers to also understand the digital wave, the digitization wave that we've seen in this pandemic year of 2020. How many merchants, for example, did you add on? How many more POS terminals did you sell, etc., to merchants?
Sure. So we effectively by December end would have deployed about 180,000 terminals all across the country. And you've got to remember, this includes 2 months which were completely washed out. Even now, there is almost 5, 10, 15% of India still shut because of various COVID-related restrictions. Yet what we are getting to see is digital payments is increasing. If you look at UPI payment transactions, and within that P2M, consumer to merchant transactions, those have gone way ahead of what it used to be before COVID. The month of October almost had 2 billion transactions which happened only on UPI. On card-based payment transaction, I have to tell you, the transactions are slightly lower than the COVID days period. However, contactless in that has actually gone up almost 5 to 6 times. And as I said, getting access to credit at your point of purchase, those transactions have almost gone up 2x of where it used to be before COVID. What we are getting to see, which is very, very interesting, is that consumers are absolutely trying to stay away from cash. And look, I don't have enough information on this, but there is clearly a consumer perception which says cash could be very closely related to spread of COVID and hence I shouldn't touch it. I have no idea if that's true or false, but that's what people tend to believe. And hence people want to use digital payment transactions. One of the things which RBI did recently and fantastic move was they actually increased the limit on a contactless transaction from 2,000 to 5,000. And that's been very, very good for us.
Okay, so that's another great trend that you have seen and of course put to your advantage, Amrish. Now, you were just telling us how MasterCard is an investor in the company, how with the help of MasterCard as well, Pine Labs is executing its overseas expansion plans. So I also want to ask you, what do you see as the future of the likes of MasterCard or even Visa, with digital payments really taking off? And, it's a very proud moment for India. We're literally building digital highways that other countries want to adopt. We have some of the best payment gateways in the world. What is the future of the credit card? And remember, you have decided to grow on the back of the like of a MasterCard.
Sure. So, one of the things to know is what NPCI has done is one of the best payments platform anywhere in the world. But what you need to realize out there is this is on the backs of a completely new wave, which is saying that my 16-digit card number is not important. My alias, which is my email address or my mobile number, is really important. And I can move money between one individual to another individual exactly how I would send messages from one person to another person. So really, payments are moving like WhatsApp messages today. And that's what NPCI has enabled. The way I look at it is Visa and MasterCard, while they have been known for being on the card side, is working very hard across many, many markets to replicate a very similar infrastructure, which is beyond card, which is more into alias, which is mobile phone number or email. I would want to think that that network will also start to consolidate around the world. So I do think Visa and Master will move from cards to other networks for payment transactions. The second piece, which is a very big shift, which is happening around the world, is this whole space around open banking, where what consumers are saying that I love my bank, but I might not like my bank's interface. And what they're saying is, let me decide what is the interface by which I interact with my bank out there. Now, that's just a completely different mindset, which is separate the bank, separate the app. And if that approach continues, I think there is an opportunity for more network providers to come into it. We've already seen some of the acquisitions which have happened around the world, which is clearly showing that more and more networks are going beyond payments to banking and going into the data space. So this space will continue to become very, very interesting. I was saying this yesterday, 2021, with the kind of changes which is expected in payments, it just feels like a new test match, as if the first ball is about to be bowled. It's just like an amazing feeling looking forward to what 2021 holds when it comes to digital payments in India.
Great. So you're looking at 2021 as a long 5-day test match where we don't know what's going to happen. But Amrish, I've got to also ask you, this sounds so interesting when you say that maybe the new trend is going to be that, okay, I bank with X, but I don't like the interface, so I want to use Y's interface. How is that really going to work? And I know you know all of this stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, Amrish gets the digital payment system. He founded Citrus, sold that for over $100 million, was at PayU, was then the CEO of PayU India, now, of course, at Pine Labs. So I do want to pick your brains and know a little more about that.
So, there are already, so this was something which started off about 2-3 years back, but even in India, there are 4 or 5 banks. What they have done is effectively the backend systems which hold your data and hold your transactions and the front end APIs for the front ends have now been released by some of the banks for fintechs to partner with. So what fintechs are doing is fintechs are building out an app-based front end which sits on top of the banking infrastructure out there. So what you could have is a completely different infrastructure which a consumer could use. Let me leave one thought with you out here about this, right? The way a bank looks at a consumer, bank always thinks about deposits first. But the way I see it today is consumers are now going to banks for transaction first. I think there's almost an opportunity to invert the app, which is not a deposit first app, but it is a transaction first app. So I know some of my fintech friends, like my co-founder from Citrus, Jiten, he's actually coming up with a product called Jupiter, which should get released, where the first screen itself is going to be a QR scan screen, and which is basically doing neobanking related services. So it's completely inverted to what a classic bank looks at it, wherein it's not deposit first, it's transaction first. So I think those trends will continue in 2021 and 2022.